From the Eileen Dover Studios. This video is about Jeffrey Montgomery, a gay activist, and these are the questions, comments, and remarks before and after the screening of America You Kill Me at Affirmations in Ferndale, Michigan on June 27, 2023.
So first of all, welcome to Affirmations. And I was asked to say just a couple words, and then we'll bring up the director and of course John, Jeff's brother. And we will be having a Q&A, I understand, after the film, so you can ask questions about the film of both of these gentlemen. And when Matthew Shepard was tied to a fence in 1998, it changed my life and many in this room and around the country. And I started to get much more involved in LGBTQ politics, gay politics, as we would have said then. And I was an administrator for Swartz Creek High School and Swartz Creek School District that I graduated from. And this, if you know where that is, it's a very rural area of our state. And because of my work with trying to do more with Matthew Shepard, and then of course the Boy Scouts of America started to kick out gay scouts and gay scout leaders, if you remember that. And I thought it wasn't right for them to do that, and it was my scout troop, and I had been a Boy Scout in that troop, and so I started to fight them as an administrator. And then a group of students came up to me and they asked for help because they were being beaten up and kicked out of school, and one kid had a bottle thrown at his head during cafeteria. It was a really bad situation. And so I said, as an administrator in charge of programming, that we were going to do an after-school support group for gay kids. It didn't seem that revolutionary to me, and nobody was using language like gay straight alliance that we all know now. It was just going to be an after-school support group. And the superintendent, who had been my superintendent growing up, said, "No, you're not going to do that." And I said, "Yes, we are." And he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yes, we are." And then I got fired. And I lost my coaching jobs in basketball and baseball, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life after being fired. And I decided that I was just going to grab my journal, because I'm a writer, and I was going to walk to Lansing and talk to my representative in Lansing and talk about how can we help gay kids in my high school at Swartz Creek, in my district. And so I was just gonna walk by myself, and I got a phone call, and this really gruff voice on the other end of the phone says, "Is this Dave Garcia?" And I was afraid of that question because I was getting a lot of death threats at the time, a lot. And so I didn't know how to, I said, "Yeah, it is," tentatively. And he says, "I hear you're walking to Lansing." And I said, "I am." And he said, "From Swartz Creek?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Who are you taking with you?" And I said, "Nobody. I was just thinking about me and my journal and maybe writing along the way to Lansing." And he says, "Well, I think that's a fucking bad idea." And I said, "Well, fuck you." And he said, "You and I are going to get along just fine." And he said, "My name's Jeff Montgomery. I'm from the Triangle Foundation in Detroit." And I didn't know what the Triangle Foundation was. I grew up in a farm town. I didn't know any of these people. Looking back now in my career and life, it's crazy, but I didn't know anybody. He said, "I want you to come down to Detroit, and I want you to meet with me and my staff at the Triangle Foundation." And I did. I went down to Detroit, and I met Jeff, and I met Henry, and I met Sean and Kevin, and they changed my life. It was Jeff Montgomery who told me when the University of Michigan said, "Come work for us," because I lost my job and my truck and my apartment, and I was out of work, and U of M said, "Hey, come work for us." Montgomery said, "Hey, I want you to meet I want you to, the first person you need to meet in Ann Arbor is Jim Toy. Go meet Jim. And Jim and I met at the Outbar, and that's where I met Keith and Mark. It's crazy looking back on those days now. Jeff was very important to me. He was a mentor to me. He was unlike anybody. We went together to the school district once because this kid was getting bullied, and this kid asked if I would go, and I called Jeff and I asked if Jeff would go with me because he was doing this much more than I was at that time. This kid was getting beat up, and we were talking to the principal and the school board president, and we said, well, how's it going when we sat down? We said, well, these kids are bouncing off the walls because it's almost, the vacation, it was almost summer holiday. And when the principal said the kids are bouncing off the walls, Jeff Montgomery looked at them and said, well, literally, your kids are bouncing off the walls. And that's a fucking problem. And I was like, oh, you can talk to people like this? I loved him, and I am very sorry that when I went to Los Angeles that we lost touch, and I never got to see him again. But I'm grateful, and I'm really looking forward to this movie tonight. And John, thank you very much, you and Daniel both, and your whole team for putting this together. I'm very proud that Affirmations was able to put this together with your help for our community. I will never forget your brother and what he meant to me. So thank you very much. And if you want to come up and just say a few words before we all head in together for the movie, you or Daniel both, we would greatly appreciate that. Thank you all very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Dave, for that powerful story. And so this is the first time we've screened the film in a specifically an LGBTQ plus community center, a venue of this nature. We are, we are in the heart of the Metro Detroit community here, and it means a lot to us to have the film welcomed into this space and have the opportunity to sort of show some of these materials here. A few things that I just want to say about the exhibit basically is that it's going to be here a little while longer. We're not totally sure how long, but probably through the summer, and it's going to grow a little bit. We still have artifacts and things that we're trying to track down, and so if you find yourself in the area, just stop back through and maybe take a look if you're so inclined. There's more things coming there. We want to thank Affirmations. We want to really thank Justin for really coordinating so much of this, making it all happen here. Yeah, exactly. And David back here, everybody who has just really welcomed us into this space here. The one thing I want to say about the film, I want to turn over to John for a little bit here, is that the way that I came into this is through a mutual friend I didn't know anything about. Detroit's gay history. I didn't know about Jeff Montgomery, Triangle, any of this stuff. So it's just an introduction from where I got to meet John and Jeff, and John had convinced Jeff to tell his story. He convinced him that that this had to get out, basically, like his incredible life and his work. And they came over, and I met them, and I did a quick Wikipedia search first, and so I kind of did a little bit of homework and was immediately blown away by just sort of like, how did I not know about this person? And then when they were in, we had our first discussion in my studio, Jeff sort of shared, a little more of his story, and just his presence was so arresting. It was sort of like this. The feeling I had was that even if I mess this up, even if I don't do a very good job with this, basically he's compelling enough that I can put a camera with this guy, and it's gonna be great. That because he was so engaging to listen to and to spend time with and to be in a room with. As many of you who I think I'm sure many of you knew Jeff, you knew that. But the other thing that I think is important to know before you watch the film is just that he didn't want to have anything to do with how it came out. He did not want to control it. He was adamant about that, and that's one of the main things that convinced me to jump on board and become part of this was that. He didn't want it to be like a commercial or something for him. He wanted it to be honest. He would connect us with people. He would do interviews himself, and there was no point where he was kind of guiding the way that it was coming out. So it's not his fault, basically. But with that, again, just thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk a little more after the film, but I want to introduce you to Jeff's brother, the person that convinced Jeff to be willing to open up and to bring someone like me into his story, John Montgomery.
Thank you. Yeah. Wherever you are. And thank you all for coming out here. This film has been in the works for 10 years. It was done through donations and fundraising. And basically, at Jeff's memorial, somebody said something about, somebody should write a book about Jeff. And then we just started a movie, and that began it all, right there. But again, anyway, thank you all for coming, and enjoy the film.
All right, well, let's all head in. I do want to say, I forgot to mention that even though Jeff and I were like, fuck you, he did, because of the man he was, he did go out of his way to make sure that I was safe on that walk to Lansing. It's not like we didn't do it. He was just like, don't go by yourself. I'm going to help you. So I don't want you to think like he was like, don't do it, and we didn't do it. Oh, we did the walk. So, all right, so we're all going to head in around this way and into the theater. Thank you.
After viewing America, You Kill Me, the audience reconvened for a question and answer period with the director, Daniel Land, the movie's composer, Audra Kubat, and Jeffrey's brother and the producer of the film, John Montgomery.
We knew he was amazing, but you really pulled it together in a way that just showed incredible courage and brilliance. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, and we agree. We really, the whole point of this is that we get we want to share it with as many people as possible. So right now we're doing these sort of one-off screenings, these individual events, and we're trying to make them as special as possible. But obviously we're working towards eventually having distribution in the sense where you can stream it on some of the platforms that you all already have, and basically our able to sort of spread the word further. But we do have we have dreams of bigger screenings as well that we're hopefully working up toward.
For sure.
Where we're at right now, for like a national distribution, big movie company or streaming company, there's licensing issues, copyright issues that some of the scene or some of the stuff you saw in there.
Right, there's a few. So
we've got this lawyer right now who's taking care of that.
Oh, that's good.
Within a few weeks.
yeah, so where we are right now is that you saw, because Jeff was such a voracious media personality, there's a lot of little clips that are owned by a lot of different people in a lot of different places, and we're currently having to sift through that and figure out how much we've got to pay to keep all these clips. We're a good way into that process, but there's a long way to go, and sort of figuring out what we can use, what we can't, what we have to, and what we have to kind of lock down. And that's what we have to do before we can do a big digital platform sort of release.
A major movie company or whatever is not going to get involved with this. There's a possibility that a lawsuit can come up. So that's right. So we have to also be careful about really how many times we screen it.
So the fact that he was on so many darn channels, is actually, the fact that he was so good at what he was doing is somewhat complicated for us on the back end, but we're getting there.
But can you show it for churches or temples or?
And if anybody has places they think we should screen, please reach out to us. Let us know what you think. We would love to. We really want to. The thing is, especially we've done this. We did it last year as well. But just trying to be available, especially during Pride Month, where it's sort of we just want people to be able to see it. We want people to see it, and we'll sort out the details as we go. Basically. Yeah. Does anybody else have a question?
I want to thank you. Jeff was my friend. I have a tattoo on my arm. And I was sitting there cafes with Jeff, and I said, I like your tattoo. Where? And he said, come on. We lived in the same neighborhood. And he was a strategist, because I tell people how, you know, he said he'd have my back. But part of the reason why he pushed me, because he said, as a black gay woman, it was important that all of us were at the table. And when people now say, how can you do that? It was because of Jeff Montgomery. And I have a lot of little awards from a lot of organizations. And in fact, before I got on the board of anybody, I would call Jeff and say, well, what do you think about them? But my best award was the one, I was driving down the street and I got a call, and it was from Jeff Montgomery. And he was telling me how he appreciated what I did and awarded me a catalyst, a Triangle Foundation catalyst. And that award coming from him will always be one of my prized possessions. And I appreciate that you showed Jeff, not just that powerhouse, the one that would drive you crazy and always had something to say, but you showed Jeff. And I'm deeply moved.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a lot. I appreciate that.
But no, you can't see the tattoo.
Right, yeah. There's a question there, you know, are there other questions or, I mean, just thoughts, comments, again, like, again, many of you people, what of you knew Jeff, many of you have been part of this, like, sort of this movement and everything for a while. I came from it a little bit from the outside, and it's like, I really welcome criticism, I mean, or, you know, any thoughts that you have about the film. You know, you're not going to hurt our feelings. Like, we really would love to hear what.
How much did you edit?
How
much did you edit out?
What do you mean? I mean, like, a lot.
Started as a
Yeah.
When he first gave it
It
to
wasn't
me,
3.5 hours.
It was
I honestly
Yeah.
think
It was
you
3.5
should
hours.
re-release it with
Yeah.
the full amount. That was
You
amazing.
need longer. You need more.
That was amazing.
There-
Well, that's the
there's
first time
so
I've heard
much
that,
good-
so I appreciate
That was amazing. I'm not
A
even
big part of the
joking.
battle was like getting it, again, our original, I mean, the first assembly, which is not like an actual cut of the movie, but it was like a 3.5 hour thing. We actually did submit it to some film festivals.
I mean, the interview itself was probably
Yeah,
like
the
4 or 5
interview
hours.
itself was, it was not quite, but it was long, and so it's like, a big part of the fight has been to get it down to like a manageable level where the movie wasn't too long, you know?
But the
And
thing
so-
is, there's a lot of us who, I was a part of affirmations in the transition of affirmations in the middle of the 90s. That man, I got ran out of affirmations. I left. I was like, I can't do this. I gotta take care of myself. That guy was always a warrior in every sense of the word. And that film showed that in a way that nothing has ever talked about him like that. That's why I would honestly think that a lot of people would like to see that.
Thank you.
The full context.
I will say that one thing that I do that is very important to me is that, like, we have a lot, in the process, there's a lot of deleted scenes, there's a lot of deleted, like, material that we really want to make available, and so that'll, at least when we do a physical release, we are going to do no matter what, we're going to do a physical release. Whether if we get a distributor who wants to do that, that'd be awesome. If not, we'll still do it ourselves, but I want to make a lot of deleted scenes available, so there's going to be some material around.
I was beginning at the stage. I didn't even know he dealt with half of that. That was ridiculous. I was blown away.
Thank you. Anybody?
I love how it answered so many questions about how Triangle ended
Right.
and how the end of his life and what happened to him after. I mean, it really filled in so many blank spots for me. And there was so much educational in there, you know, things that happened over the years.
Well, that was part of the idea when we went into it.
Yeah.
We have a history lesson.
Yeah, it was
Well, I
just perfect.
And for me, it was like coming at it as a, cisgender, straight, white guy, like, I was coming at it like from very much the outside, and it's like, to me, it was like I wanted the film to be something that could be respected, and that people who knew him and were in the fight, like, could, you know, like, could embrace and thought that we did it right. But also, I wanted to be the kind of thing, and I hope that maybe it is, that like somebody could show, like, you know, show a parent or an uncle or something who's like not there yet, but maybe is like amenable a little bit. You know, I wanted to be a little bit of a what are these issues like kind of in America 101. I wanted to do a little bit of that for it because Jeff was my gateway into understanding a lot of this, and I thought that like there were so many things that it was important to sort of highlight that were not even connected to him per se specifically, like the World War II stuff. I mean, the stuff like it was important to kind of, because it's also rooted in Detroit. It's rooted in like it's not on the coast. We're in the Midwest, and it's sort of like what's happening here.
He's a white boy from Grosse Pointe that literally threw the classism back in the face of Grosse Pointe and said, "We're not doing this. I'm not taking this." That right there just speaks volumes to the character of the man. I mean,
And like a roadmap to activism
Right,
itself, really, and the trials or the sort of, you know, the downfalls of like giving your life completely over to a cause, and
Right.
how we let our activists fall through the cracks. We let the people that have like changed us and helped us like slip away, because we you know, because they're like these like bigger than life characters that in the end, like, they need us the way that they have given themselves to us.
yeah.
Which I don't think is limited to like the, you know, the LGBTQ
Certainly.
rights movement. It's like I get somehow there were some universal things we were trying to like, you know, dive into a little bit in terms of just activism in general, progressive
What
activism
happens
especially.
to those that give
There's
themselves to
there's not a ton of money in it, you know. There's
No.
not a ton of like, you know, there's not like the people that were doing it, especially at certain times, had to throw their whole lives into it, and that was something that really struck me that we wanted to articulate.
You know, one of
There's a
the,
lot to hear that.
something that would be interesting to see is like, what you don't recognize is Jeff Montgomery is part of the reason you've got Midtown now.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
those of us who lived
Yep.
down in the Cat's Court, because when he was down there, and I lived down, it was the Cat's Court.
I've heard
But
about
that
it.
renovation of Orchestra Hall
Yep.
started
it
the
all.
chain in that area. Orchestra Hall, Avalon Bread, all of that
the Gem
made
Theater.
Yep.
Midtown what it is now. Would
Yep.
be that,
I
would
love
come
that you
back
left
of
that
Detroit.
piece.
Well,
I love that you left that piece in the film, because
Yeah.
at the time that he was cutting it, it was like, is this like, you know, we have all this footage, like I said, like 3-4 hours of footage and commentary, and it was like this moment of like, Orchestra Hall, it was so important to like, this is the, you know, like that went on to save these other buildings that the
would've been
city was
gone.
ready to
well,
demolish.
and the thing that I think is like, so there was it was hard when we first had this big long version of the movie. We had to keep cutting things out, and what kept getting cut was the personal stuff. There's a lot of great personal stories and things about.
And I think a lot of people would love to see that.
There's so much stuff that we had that because it was like you're trying to streamline the movie to be about what it's going to be about, right? But the thing that to me was very important, no matter what, to hang on to was that Orchestra Hall piece, because I think it's not just all. I mean, first of all the things you said.
It culturally enhances
Yeah.
everything.
But on top of that, to me, what was very significant about it was the fact that he. This is where he learned a lot of those skills. Like doing that job, being the PR director of like this, like I mean, in a very David and Goliath, like although Goliath is just sort of just the world in this case, like this like long shot of trying to save this building, and people had already done a lot of work, but he became the PR face of it, and it was sort of like I think that in that job, he had to learn how to deal with business leaders, city officials. You know, raise money, become a fundraiser. He had to deal with the media. He had to make media relationships, and so as a result, though, like I think so many of the things that he had done, because he also one of the things we had to cut. He after Orchestra Hall, he worked the parade company. He was like the Thanksgiving Day parade. He was the PR guy that like helped run that for like years. But all that
And
stuff.
the Chili Willy thing.
The Chili Willy. Oh, you should tell the Chili Willy story just real briefly. This is kind of a fun one. This is a scene that didn't make it.
Yeah, well, it was Thanksgiving, and my family was there, my wife, Linda, was over there, my kids, and Jeff all of a sudden got a call that Chili Willie had broken off and was flying away. And he said, I gotta get out of here. He left the Thanksgiving dinner because he turned it into a big PR coup. And the thing ended up out by Parsons Island. But he made a big story out of it and he got tons of press.
Hey, John, he was your brother, and if he was here in the empty chair that we have up there, and was able to see this and hear these conversations, what do you think he would say? What do you think he would say right now?
Right now?
Keep it clean. No, you don't have to keep it clean. What do you think he would think about the movie and about what you're doing and about being in the space and doing it?
I think he'd be really knocked out by it. His thing was always like, kind of bring it on.
Yeah.
Kind of did that.
Yeah.
I think he never cared how small the audience was, really, or how big it was. Like, it was the same amount of energy. It could have been just you sitting here, or just you sitting here. It was like the same amount of energy. So
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't matter who came or how many of us were here. It would feel impactful.
I mean,
for him, I think.
that's a question.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I mean, and John, I'll go back to you, but it's like, but for me, it's like, you know, the way I envision this, and we spent 10 years on this movie, basically. Like 2013 is when we first started, like, well, when I first met, we met, and we shot this stuff, we did a fundraiser, and the idea was that, like, we could make this movie, and then it would sort of, like, it would maybe kick off a new phase of his career. That maybe this is a film that could, like, launch him out into, like, maybe like a college, like, lecture tour or something where he would just go around and speak. But I certainly imagined that if we were successful in the film, that it would be him holding court here. He'd be the one, like, I could be in the back, I'd be back there, you know what I'm saying? It's like, like, he would be the one, like, because the whole idea was to kind of get him, you know, to introduce him to people that maybe didn't know and sort of record all this, but like also to relaunch him out in the world. And that changed very dramatically when we lost him. You know, and it was something that was very, I mean, obviously hard on a personal level. I mean, for you, as your brother, for, you know, but and for me, you know, I knew him for only the last 3 years of his life, and we were close in that time. But what it meant was that, first of all, the ending was going to be different because he was working on a I don't know how much he ever actually, like, recorded, but he was working on, like, an address. There was going to be a speech that he was going to give at a church, and we started to think about that as being the finale of the film, and it would kind of launch him out on this new, you know, kind of adventure. We'd roll him around all these different places, you know, and but when we lost him, it was sort of like the whole nature of the film and what we thought we were doing changed. And also a lot of things emerged in that whole last half hour of the movie where things get a little, you know, a little more maybe controversial or stuff, or so if you're, you know, for people locally anyway. There were things that we didn't know until after Jeff passed, and people started to share things with us, and we started to get more, you know, and so it's like the film changed very dramatically in a lot of ways when we lost Jeff. That's the thing that I wish the most, is that he could have seen it, that he could have been at when we premiered it at the Redford, at the Free Film Festival, that he could have been in an audience and heard how people were reacting to the film. I wish he could have been the one to be up on stage to answer the questions, and not me, who doesn't necessarily know the answers to a lot of these questions, you know, but I think he would have great ones, so.
I think the whole piece would speak for itself. You've got to document it.
Mhm.
That's a powerful tool to document this being documented the way it is. You've got enough material. I mean, you can release it in 2 ways, the way everybody else is.
And the other thing we want to do is, so it probably wouldn't be a longer cut, but we do want to make sure there's a lot of deleted scenes we want to make available online and on a physical release. But there's definitely, those are things that we want to for sure get out there. Does anybody else have any other questions
What's
about?
going on with the triangle now? Because
I
when
can't
when I
answer
left
that, you know,
Affirmations,
like,
I didn't know anything.
no, I mean, so I will say this, like, so the scene in the film you saw, the scene that plays out in real time, it's the one scene in the film that plays out in real time, where it's like, we're just, you know, it's a documentary, we're like in the car, we're like going somewhere, right? And, but basically what we decided was he'd been trying to reach out, we'd all been trying to reach out to like make this like visit and interviews at Equality happen back in 2016. So again, this is several administrations before the one that's there now. So,
Right.
we basically just agreed, like, hey, we're gonna tell them that, because they'd said we could have a meeting, and we had said, we've been trying to set it up for like a long time and not getting a response. We just said, okay, we're gonna let them know that we're coming, give them a couple days in advance, we're gonna be coming at this time and this day. And what we decided, and what I told Jeff, and this is why it's in the film, it was sort of like, whatever happens is in the film. Just whatever happens, that's gonna be what happens in the film. And so that's why that's in there. I will say that subsequently, there was a lot of cooperation. So a lot of the shots you saw inside the building, that was all stuff that was enabled by like the subsequent administrations. Like they've been very helpful and very conducive to working with us in the film going forward. But it was just a matter of sort of like, and we weren't trying to stir up controversy. It was just sort of like it got to a point where it's sort of like, we're making a documentary, we're gonna go and we're gonna find out what happens, and that's what we did. You know,
Jeff's life was controversy.
but
Anybody who dealt with him knew that. So
yeah.
the fact that reflects in the film just makes it that much greater.
So it's like, I don't necessarily know, I know that the building has been sold, they're no longer, they don't have a Detroit presence anymore, but they are doing, you know, they're doing their work from Lansing, and I've seen more activity, you know, so again, I don't have anything to say about that really in particular. We were just trying to tell Jeff's story in an honest way, and so it necessarily overlapped with what the organization is now, but I don't have much to say about that.
Right.
Yeah.
During that interview with Craig Foley, Craig asked him what happened after you left, and he just didn't say anything for the longest time. Did he ever, and then we cut to something else.
Right.
Did he ever answer? Did he ever say?
In the moment, oh shoot, you caught us there a little bit, you know, I'm glad that you brought that up. No, it's like, in that moment, he did not, like, you know, sort of reveal, he really, he sort of declined to answer that question,
Okay.
essentially. And but what we did was we filled in the edit, we filled in what we knew happened, you know.
Okay.
And so it's like, there's a little bit of a back and forth that happens there. But yeah, that's why you don't get his answer. But that moment is exactly as it was captured.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
real time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Of him
And
taking that space.
and when that happened, it was, for me as a filmmaker, it was sort of like, oh, that's, yeah, I remember in the moment watching it and like recording it being like, we're not cutting a frame of that. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was like, there's a guy who is so loquacious, you know, so like he can speak to anybody, he can talk about anything, any topic, any subject, and all of a sudden he's like stunned into silence.
Yeah.
And it's like that, to me, it was so powerful.
Yeah.
So,
It was like an uncomfortable moment.
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I remember talking about that when
Yeah.
you were editing, and you're just like, is this, you know, it's like long, it keeps going, and
Yeah.
we, you know, and you're just like, no, it has to,
No.
we're gonna roll this out, and everybody's gonna feel uncomfortable too.
Because it was real, you know, it was just real.
It's real.
Yeah.
I loved the movie, and I just was really blown away by the production values and everything. You had all these graphics where, like, it was the office door, but you could read what the newspaper said, and this was quite advanced graphics you had there, and that was beautiful. I saw on the credit that you give yourself a graphics and animation credit. Now, that was very interesting, too, the use of that kind of thing. And was that John Dunavant, the artwork?
Donovan.
He's
So,
the
Theater Bazaar.
Theater
And
Bazaar
he's
guy,
great.
right?
He's
Oh
great
yeah, that
artist
was
as
beautiful.
Yeah, so all the graphics, the animated graphics, when you're talking about the maps and all that stuff, I did all that stuff. Like
Oh, yeah,
that's
all right.
part of what I
It was
do.
very impressive.
In general, and but also the illustrations. So there's the scenes that are kind of animated where you're looking at like a painting that's sort of moving. The ones that look really good, those are done by John Donovan, and I cut them apart, animated them, and put a camera in them, and made them feel.
Oh, I really enjoyed that.
The ones that don't look as good are the ones that I drew. So, so like, he's the great artist, and so to answer
I
those
just want to
questions.
say, like Daniel, has done almost every part of this film. Like, aside from John and aside from the score, it's like, you know, from filming the interview with Craig Foley, to all the edits, to most of the animation, to all the graphics. Like, this is one man.
You're a one-man studio, you are.
You guys know, you are looking at the team here. There's like one other person, the sound guy, Jimmy Dixon, who lives in California now, but he did live in the same building for a long time. So it's like our team. This is who made the movie basically. There's a few other people, but it's like it's very. This is a very small force here. And something that John mentioned at the beginning, I want to emphasize: this is a film that was made entirely on the strength of individual donations, donors. We never had any grant support. We tried. We didn't get them. But basically, like all of this was done by members of the community, and specifically people that knew Jeff. A lot of his Grosse Pointe classmates, people who are not in the gay community, people who just love Jeff as a person. That's how it was possible, was through donations basically. So it really it's humbling to be able to do this, but it also took a long time because we never had a whole lot at one time.
Well, in historical context or whatever, you've got a great documentary there, but it's more than that. It's a lot more than that. It's a very interesting movie. And then me being hidden transgender and not knowing what transgender was, and didn't even know the word or anything until I'm like 45. But out there in California, I can remember in watching this movie, the Triangle Foundation. Oh, I heard about them, and oh, I remember, and I remember some of these changes that were caused by Jeff Montgomery. So, wow, it's really a revelation to me to watch it today.
That's great to hear. I'd be curious, again, it's like we're so happy to be in this space and within affirmations and everything. I wondered, like, if Dave, anything else that would sort of connect, like affirmations to triangle. If there's any sort of like sinews or anything that you would add to how this like broader Metro Detroit community of like activism and support has come to be.
All I would say is that Equality Michigan, as we know it in 2023, like Affirmations, like so many other LGBT organizations, have had roller coaster moments, ups and downs. Equality Michigan is very strong right now with good leadership, and I hope that the community feels Affirmations is the same. And for the first time, we have the Michigan Community Centers Network of all 10 centers across the state that meet every other month, and we all work together on the Hate Won't Win Coalition. We knocked on more doors than anyone other than Labor in this last election, and now we, unlike in the movie, now we have a Democratic, progressive majority at the House, in the Senate, the Governor, in the Attorney General, and the Secretary of State, and the State Supreme Court. And I think Jeff would be very proud of that, and I think he's a part of that. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. I want to add that, like, where the film leaves off, I mean, we really, like, the edit of the film, the way it's constructed, like, a lot's happened since then, right? I mean, it's like we've been showing the film for a year, but like the edit was locked like some years before that. It's like, so there, it's not necessarily like a reflection of where things are exactly right now, whether it's Equality Michigan or sort of like the state of play in general. And so it's the kind of thing that, like, we are actually probably going to be updating the film one last time, probably something in the credits, because so many things have happened. The expansion of the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. There's been a number of things that sort of that we want to bring the film in the final moments. Probably it'll probably be a credit sequence. Like, we're still figuring out exactly how this plays, but that brings it up to now. because it's like, as it stands right there, you saw the last thing that was sort of, the last date that was mentioned was like 2017, right, with the first like Pride events in Grosse Pointe. But like, again, that was a minute ago. So it's like, we're definitely, like, as the film gets rolled out, probably the next time we screen it, this is probably our last screening for a little while, because we've got some things to sort of sort out in between. But like, basically, the next time we roll it out, it's gonna have some of these updates that are gonna bring it to where we are right now.
I think one of the bills that just got.
Oh, is there a question? I see a hand back there, yeah.
I just wanted to say, I'd like to see you say something more about the cable access show that he had. There were some clips from it, but I used to watch that, and to me, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, it was,
Yeah.
it was a cable access.
The Triangle Messenger, yeah.
And
It's
there
like,
weren't gay people on TV talking
Yep.
about this stuff.
you're not the first to bring that up. It's like, cause we just sort of roll it out and don't talk about what it is. But it's like, I think at the very least, I'll probably add some kind of like a text thing
Yeah.
that lets you know what you're looking at. And actually, out in the gallery when we come back out there, there's one of the things we have up on the wall is a copy of an invitation to the launch party of the Triangle Messenger. And it's like, so this was, it was a cable access show. There's a lot of great content from it. We use clips from it throughout the film. But it was a show that Jeff hosted and was really out there kind of trying to bring issues related to the community, like out to the community through the technological means that were available. That works, but that would include full episodes of the Triangle Messenger, and basically those things should be findable for people online.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love for my kids to see this movie, but like, they're so online all the time, you know, and I wish it could be streaming somewhere. I knew Jeff, I told him about Jeff, and like, you know, I tried to tell him what it was like at a certain time period, like in the 80s, my gay uncle killed himself, my first boyfriend died of AIDS, you know, like, and so much has changed, and I'm so hopeful because like my kids and their friends, their minds are so different than what it used to be. But that said, like I have people that have been like red pilled in the last couple of years who are posting stuff about grooming and trans people, and I'm like, I mean, people that I went to art school with in the 80s, and I'm like, you were the last person that I thought would be susceptible to this. So it's so topical, you know. And I know it's just so politically topical now. We're still fighting it. It's like I look at it and see where we've come in the last couple decades, but I feel like this is a moment.
Something about that one of the many things we trimmed as the film went forward was people talked about like the backlash. Like whenever you make progress, there's this like backlash. So it's like, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and sometimes 1 and 2. You know, it changes. But basically that it's like as you make, you know, you like, so with the success of, you know, of achieving sort of gay marriage and sort of all the like the, you know, the polling that kind of brought most of the general public along with that, we're now in a really nasty backlash. We're seeing these attacks on trans people. We're seeing these attacks on like anybody who would you know, would offer, you know, just compassion for gay kids and like that, being accused of groomer. And it's the same playbook. It's so old. You saw in the film, like one of the things, and there's an article up on the wall out there also about, you know, Representative Deb Wyman, who like accused them of being pedophiles, you know, and it's sort of like, this is not new. This was happening all the time. But Triangle fought back and they won in you know, maybe the first lawsuit of its kind where they like, where they defeated one of these lawmakers who was using this slander, you know. So we're in a really nasty time right now. I mean, you know, but like, you know, and also, this is one of the things where I feel the film has already become, not dated, but it's like, there's things I would do differently if we were finishing it right now, because it's like, you would have to comment on, I would make it more, I would bring the trans focus forward more, because he was somebody that was like, that was for trans people, like, at a time when most of the gay rights movement was not. You know, was somebody that like
HRC wouldn't bring us along for years.
Yeah,
Oh
he's
no,
somebody
I
who
don't.
like who was really brought, you know, like took a lot of heat for those values, you know.
You know,
Yeah.
these are some organizations and some.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just-
Thank you so
we have
much.
to go, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Daniel, I think it is getting a little
We
bit
should
late
probably
for the
go,
audience,
yeah.
and I know that we
I-
started
I
Yes.
over, so.
I was gonna play a song, but I.
Yeah, so we have one last thing here. So we've
We don't wanna
got,
hold you though.
we have our composer,
Oh, I'm
Audra
sorry.
Kubat here. Yeah, no,
Please don't be sorry.
right now, I just really enjoy talking to all of you.
Yeah.
Let's, she's got a song, maybe two for you.
I'm just gonna play one.
Just do the bell, okay, or whichever one she wants to
But,
do.
feel free to leave. Don't-
But can I
don't-
introduce her a little bit more here? Like, I just want to say thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
no pressure at all.
That Audra Kubat like knew Jeff before I did. They knew each other through Union Street, and she knew him. He was a fan of her music, and so when I was brought on, Audra and I are partners and have been for a long time. But it was very in tune with the whole idea that it's like that she would compose this score because again, she'd known him for longer than I had, and also he was a big fan of her music. And so we used a lot of tracks of hers that are instrumentals that are on some of her albums. Audra's got seven albums, out there in the world. AudraKubat.com, if I can do that, But basically, she's going to share. So you heard this song in the film as an instrumental, but she's going to play it for you with all of its sort of lyrics.
Yeah, I scored the film originally at about 3.5 hour timing.
She scored the big long one.
So this is, again, an instrumental for me. It's called The Bells, and it's about sort of hearing that moment you just need to hear so you can find your way. Felt the weight of 1,000 miles, felt the rush of a wing on my neck, just trying to keep above water, but my arms are getting weaker. I heard the sound of a passing ship, I tried to call out for it, but it was just too far away and I was very tired. Then I heard the bells, they were ringing out. They came through so crystal clear. Maybe it's just my imagination, but it's just what I needed to hear, just what I needed to hear. Stolen time from our memories, wish I could have just let myself see. It's always up to me, I think it's time for a revival. Then I heard the bells, they were ringing out. They came through so crystal clear. Maybe it's just our imagination, but it's just what we needed to hear, just what we needed to hear, just what we needed to hear, just what we needed to hear. So when I think about this song and why we used it, was because I felt like when we heard the sound of Jeffrey and where he was and what he was doing, it was like he was that sound of that bell that we were looking for, that sound that we were waiting to hear. And so I had written it much later after I knew him, but when we were making the film and thinking about that, it was like Triangle was like that bell, right? Because it's like that was the sound that when you heard that sound and you saw that card go down, it just felt like it was right to have this song kind of represent in some way the film. So there's just a little part of it. I kind of shortened it a little bit, but thank you so much for Thank you very much.
better